Welcome to U.S. Defense Line Channel. Operations continue to increase in Donbass. Ukrainian army took action for a large-scale attack in the Melitopol region. After the southern front, the intensity of the operations began to increase on the eastern front as well. On the Donetsk front, the eastern region operations are increasing with American-made HIMARS missile systems. Explosion sounds came one after another from the critical Russian military points in the regions. Struggle continues on the Svartov line, another key area on the eastern front. Ukraine, thanks to its strategic advance, can carry out a big siege against the Russian troops on the fronts at any time. While the operations on the southern front have been going on recently, the operations on the eastern front are starting to gain momentum. It has been reported that the Ukrainian armed forces launched attacks with HIMARS missile systems on the Donetsk front. In a very short time, 14 attacks were carried out with HIMARS missile systems against the important points of the Russian soldiers on this front. Serious damage was reported to many Russian military points with these 14 missile attacks, in which the explosions took place in a row. It is also known that Russian troops could not prevent these HIMARS missile systems. Since it cannot be prevented, many critical points are targeted and easily destroyed with each attack. After the great success in the south, the war seems to have shifted to other fronts. It didn't take long for operations to start on the Zaporizhzhia front as well. Explosions took place one after another in this critical area. Mayor of the Melitopol region on the Zaporizhzhia front of Ukraine, Ivan Fedorov, made important statements about the region and announced that the Melitopol region, some of which is under the control of Russian troops, has been turned into a large military base. Ukrainian armed forces are preparing for a large-scale operation against the critical points of the Russian forces in this Melitopol region. It was thought that when the Ukrainian army gained full control in the Kherson region, especially on the right parts, operations would be launched in the Melitopol region in Zaporizhzhia. Then, in a short time, Ukrainian troops started large-scale preparations in the region. Entire territory can be reclaimed. It is also known that Europe's largest nuclear power plant is located on this front. This situation makes regional control more important for countries. Operations on the Luhansk front continue without slowing down. Ukrainian troops, especially in recent days, have been increasing their operations on the Svartov and Kreminna lines on this front. If the area is controlled by Ukrainian troops, the road and rail link of the Russian forces on the eastern front could be completely broken. This causes the supply flow to the Luhansk front to be interrupted and the Ukrainian troops to provide more logistics flow. Therefore, the region is of critical importance for both countries. On top of all this, it was reported that Russian troops tried to build a defense line on this line. Ukrainian forces are trying not to give an opportunity to this. It is also only a matter of time before Russian troops are cornered, as many soldiers are sent to the northern front following their success in Kherson. Moreover, it is reported that many Ukrainian soldiers and dozens of armored vehicles are being sent to the region. Russian army, on the other hand, is starting to find it difficult to stay in the region and gain control. Ukrainian troops, who have been making strategic progress since the beginning of the war, can even carry out a big siege against Russian soldiers at any time thanks to their effective advance. We can see this from the fact that they are making progress simultaneously and in many ways. Thanks to the operations on the southern front in recent days, the Ukrainian army began to gain a great advantage in the Kherson region. Even after the critical developments in the region, Zelensky visited Kherson. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in the Kherson region, which was liberated from Russian forces. Ukrainian leader, who expressed his gratitude to his soldiers, showed that the struggle will continue until the end. Russia continues to suffer great losses since the beginning of the war. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced the latest losses of Russian forces on the territory of Ukraine. Ukrainian forces neutralized 510 Russian soldiers in just one day. Ukraine also destroyed 6 armored combat vehicles, 2 artillery systems, 8 tanks, and 2 drones of the Russian troops. Explaining the total losses of Russia, Ukraine announced that more than 81,000 Russian soldiers have been neutralized since the beginning of the war. In addition, more than 5,750 armored combat vehicles and more than 2,850 Russian tanks have been destroyed so far. Moreover, Russia, whose failures on the ground continue to increase, also suffers great losses in the air. Number of operational tactical level unmanned aerial vehicles destroyed so far in Moscow has exceeded 1,500. Moscow is now trying their last chance as the war progresses. The joint work of Russia and Belarus, which has few supporters, continues. According to the statements, a total of 8 Russian Il-76's cargo planes arrived at Machulishchi Airport in Belarus within 2 days. In these aircraft, it is stated that missiles for the S-300 and S-400 surface-to-air missile launchers were exported. It is estimated that with these cargo planes, new missiles or ammunition can be delivered to Belarus. It is also thought that there may be simultaneous imports and exports. If such assumptions are correct, it will appear that Russia has moved the missiles to the Rostov region. Purpose of Russia's deployment in this region may be to supply missiles to the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, but it is known that the Ukrainian army took action. Ukrainian forces, who have recently built a wall on the Belarusian border and taken various measures, are showing all their struggle in the war, being prepared against many possible attacks from Belarus. Taking such measures now is of great importance for countries. Also, Russia's current supporters are very few. On the contrary, aid continues to arrive in Ukraine day by day. Current support for Ukraine came from Lithuania. Ukraine reported the arrival of military aid from Lithuania. Lithuania's 12 M113 armored combat vehicles have arrived. Lithuania has previously announced that it will procure winter uniforms worth about 2 million euros, enough for 25,000 Ukrainian forces in the Ukrainian armed forces. In addition, Lithuania announced that it took howitzers damaged on the battlefield for repair. It is known that the importance of all kinds of support for countries is very critical. This makes it very beneficial to have a great advantage with each help. It can even change the tide of war. Because even though Ukraine is a smaller country, thanks to the help from the countries and the skills of its soldiers, it can prevail on many fronts. Russia, on the other hand, has to face major defeats due to its ever-decreasing military equipment and ammunition. If this situation continues in this way, the war will completely turn in favor of Ukraine. This leads to an increase in tension on the Moscow side and tensions between officials and commanders. As tensions increase, mistakes made increase and defeats become inevitable. Important statements about Ukraine came from the United States. President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, declared that he saw the liberation of the Ukrainian forces as an important victory in the Kherson region. He also stated that the United States will continue to assist Ukraine in self-defense. Biden also spoke about the possibility of negotiating with Russia. Biden announced that they would not enter into any negotiations and stated that without Ukraine, there would be nothing about Ukraine. It was a decision that Ukraine had to make. He also stated that they expected the war to slow down during the winter months, but that Russia would not be able to achieve its main goal. Over time, we will see more clearly how these situations will turn out. Now every step taken is more critical than the previous one. Both countries have no margin for error. In these days when the violence of the operations in the war has increased considerably, every decision made by the leaders and every strategic step taken by the army will become much more important. These situations will determine the course of the war and the fate of the countries. If Ukraine can continue its success in operations, it will take back many regions and will continue its struggle to the end, not to leave a single Russian soldier on the country's territory. We'll see what happens in the next few days. We have reached the end of another video. You can support us by liking the video. You can easily follow new videos by subscribing. I wish you all a war-free day. See you.